Good day, everybody. Here we are on the Bible in a Year 2021, dealing with day 59, Numbers chapters 11, 12, and 13 today, which are a little more exciting if you're into stories than the previous parts that we've been reading through Numbers as we move out from the mountain of God. And, and we see right from verse 1 that the old golden age of obedience is over as we look at this. When the people complained intensely in the Lord's hearing, the Lord heard and became angry. And the Lord's fire burned them and consumed the edges of the camp. You got to keep in mind, God is holy. Yahweh is holy. And this is the opposite of holy. He called his people holy. He told them to be holy because he is holy. And it's supposed to be a relationship of trust. And because they have entered into this relationship that does not reflect who they are in him, there's a consuming that takes place. And this is the reason why the Levites are encircled around the tent of meeting, is to provide this kind of buffer, given the time for the Israelites to actually get their act in order before they are consumed due to their disobedience in the presence of the Holy One. And yeah, it's he's not tame, but he's good. This is the he is not tame part. Um, they don't have Jesus. They're not covered in the blood. And if it wasn't for Jesus, we would still be in the same position. You got to remember that when you're reading through this. We are where we are not because we're better than them, but because we are covered by Jesus. Eh, we always know that it starts with a few, right? It's a few discontented people. Anybody who's had any leadership at all in a church knows that it always starts with just one person or two people. The negativity does not take long to spread whatsoever. And so we read the riffraff among them had a strong craving. And they started talking. They started talking about the meat. They started talking about the things that they left behind in Egypt. And this started this move. People ended up being moving away from this attitude of obedience and thanksgiving to the place of being a malcontent. So um, even the Israelites cried again and said, "Who will give us meat to eat?" And they looked at their time in Egypt from the perspective of their stomach, um, forgetting their loss of liberty, forgetting how hard it was, forgetting those moments and seasons where they weren't allowed to think at all, and they would be worked hard from the moment they woke up to the moment they put their head down on the pillow. We forget these things. We tend to forget the bad experiences when we look at our past. We often forget the terrible parts of it, and we think of the good old days. Well, the good old days weren't all that good. And then verse 6 we see here, because they're getting themselves in a lot of trouble. And they're saying, now our lives are wasting away. There's nothing but manna in front of us. Now our lives are wasting away. They're on the way to the promised land. They've left the mountain of God. It's not a long journey. They're heading towards the promised land that is filled with riches. And they've been given so many promises about that. But now our lives are wasting away because they're eating manna. Life is about more than food, Jesus told us. Life is about more than food. Um, yeah, they have something far greater than they ever had in Egypt, and yet they're looking at the lesser things. They're looking at the lesser things and saying we don't have very much of that, whereas the greater things they have an overabundance of. And then I don't know, because this complaining gets passed around. Moses starts to complain because the complaints of the Israelites are too much for him to carry. And we're going to see soon that complaining spirit gets also passed on to Aaron and Miriam. That complaining spirit is terrible. It is really terrible. And I'm sure you have experienced. I've experienced it, where somebody else's complaints have turned me into a complainer, and it's ugly. It's not nice at all. And so Moses here is taking his complaint to the Lord. Moses said to the Lord, "Why have you treated your servant so badly? And why haven't I found favor in your eyes? For you have placed the burden of all these people on me. Did I conceive all these people? Did I give birth to them that you would say to me, carry them at the breast as a nurse carries an unweaned child to the fertile land that you promised their ancestors?" And then he says, "How can I give them meat?" it's Nobody said that Moses had to give them meat, but he's feeling the weight of this responsibility. He's taking the complaints on as if they're directed at him. He's taken on too much. Like he's feeling this, and he doesn't need to feel this. This was never given to him. He wasn't supposed to carry them. The Lord is carrying them. But the Lord listens because he has this wonderful relationship um, with Moses. But listen to how bad it gets. Uh, if you're going to treat me like this, please kill me. I just we can look at this and say, "Oh, he's being a bit dramatic, right?" If I found favor in your eyes, then don't let me endure this wretched situation. Um, is he being too dramatic, or is this just he's in this place of turmoil? It's a heartfelt turmoil. He's hearing the complaints of the people. He would love to be able to do something for them, but this is beyond any person's ability to be able to do anything for them. This is just like, um, how do you give a couple million people um, meat to eat? And he goes on and he says, even if we slaughter all of our herds, it's not going to be enough for everybody. And then we have this thing that the Lord does. He listens to the complaint of Moses, and he takes this anointing of Moses, and he takes some of it and divides it up among 70 elders, so that they can help carry the weight of everything that's going on. So the Lord said to Moses, "Gather before me 70 people from Israel's elders, whom you know as elders and officers of the people. Take them to the meeting tent and let them stand there with you. Then I'll descend and speak with you there. I'll take some of the Spirit that is on you and place it on them. Then they will carry the burden of the people with you, so that you won't bear it alone." And it really struck me here that this is very much similar to Jesus and the church. We have been left here to represent Jesus. We've been given his anointing, the ministry that was given to him. We get to share in that, and so. These gifts of the Spirit are actually everything that Jesus had. The full anointing of Jesus has been divided up and given out. It's been spread out, so that not one of us can do this alone. Not one of us has everything that Jesus had. We have a portion. We have a portion. And that has been spread out for us to work together. And these 70 elders will work together with Moses to help these people, to see them complete everything, not to kill them, not to judge them, not to tear them to pieces, but to help them to make it to the end. And that's the role of each one of us, to be the encouragers to each other. It's not doesn't just fall upon the fivefold. The fivefold are definitely the trainers. They've been set aside as the trainers, as the servants to the body. But each of us have been given a portion. Each of us have been given a gift to participate in everything that's going on in the mission that has been given to us. And that's it. Just struck me as reading this, that the same thing has happened for the church. Um, the thing is here, that the complaining really angered Yahweh. We read, you won't eat for just 1 day or 2 days or 5 days or 10 days or 20 days, but for a whole month until it comes out of your nostrils and nauseates you. You've rejected the Lord who's been with you, and you have cried before him, saying, why did we leave Egypt? That whole thing is just such a slap in the face. Just a slap in the face. Ingrates are in such much better position now. It's better to be in the desert with nothing with the Lord than to be in Egypt with all the riches without the Lord. And it's just, yeah, it's not good. Don't get God angry. It doesn't turn out well. It's not good. Um, we're going to see that in a moment, but here we have Moses talking about this thing. um, Yahweh is saying that he is going to provide the meat, and Moses said, the people I'm with are 600,000 on foot, and you're saying I will give them meat and they will eat for a month. Like, Moses is scratching his head. I don't understand this about Moses, really. Just an aside here, I don't understand why Moses would have any doubt. He has seen so much. I mean, he has seen the waters divided. He's seen Egypt destroyed under these plagues. He has seen water from the rock. Like, he has seen so much. Why? What would provoke him to even question this? And what's up with the numbers? This is weird, because they've done a census. The army's over 600,000, and he's saying there's 600,000 on foot. So is he just presenting the army to the Lord here? Is that what he's presenting? Because we know that there's a lot more than that. Um, they haven't even counted the Levites in with the army. There's also the children and the women, and the older men who didn't fit into the age range that were counted. So, if there's 600,000 who can fight, then yeah, easily multiply that by three or four. So you're looking over 2 million people. So you can understand Moses' question then about, where where am I going to get a meat for this? But it was never upon Moses to get the meat. Um, and that's why the Lord, sometimes I don't know. I guess it's with the travel, with the busyness, with uh, everything that they've gone through in such a short period of time. The Lord said to Moses, "Is the Lord's power too weak? Now you will see whether my word will come true for you or not." And it does. Um, but then we have this thing where the elders, it's divided up. The elders are given this power. Two of the 70 didn't actually. Um, I mean, I guess they were rebellious and they were angry or whatever. They didn't show up for this ceremony, and still the Spirit came upon them. The anointing came upon them, and they were prophesying. And it um, stresses it only happened one time, and we see this. We see this later um, with King Saul. When the anointing came on him, he too prophesied. But it happened to him a few times. But here in this beginning of the anointing, he went into the prophetic, and this is just it's what happens as that anointing takes root. And I don't know why we have a problem with that today, but we do, and we shouldn't, because it's here and it's very scriptural, and we should understand it. And so Josh was upset because he thinks this is taken away from Moses. And Moses said to him, are you jealous for my sake? Like he's shocked by this. If only all the Lord's people were prophets, with the Lord placing His Spirit on them, and really this speaks of Moses' heart. And I know we're really wanting to deal more with understanding of the Lord and seeing what's been revealed, but it, we should also understand this relationship that Moses has with the Lord, and what has happened to Moses because of this relationship, and because Moses knows that none of this is happening by him himself, and it is the Lord through him. There's just a humbleness that's on him, and he's saying, "Listen, I don't try to guard this power for myself. I wish that everybody had this. I wish everybody had this experience. I wish everybody had this relationship." Um, and that's where we're supposed to be. There's not supposed to be any jealousy among us. We want the very best for people. We want them to have the very best relationship they can have with the Lord. And yeah, there should not be jealousy. Verse 11. Um, yeah, so the meat's provided. And this can really strike us as odd here, because they complained, and the Lord responded to their complaints, and He gave them what they were looking for. But then this happens in verse 33. While the meat was still between their teeth and not yet consumed, the Lord's anger blazed against the people. The Lord struck the people with a very great punishment. And there's not everyone, but some of them ended up being sick and dying. And I'm just wondering, it's my own, as I read through this, I'm just wondering why some? Why was it some? Was it because some of them had such ungrateful hearts? They're consuming this food, but it's more with resentment than anything else. They still have in their mind that they'd rather go back to Egypt and not be dependent upon the Lord, and they really don't care about this relationship. So it's with an ungrateful heart. Is it with an unsatisfied rebellion that this still wasn't good enough for them? Was it that kind of heart attitude that just spoke of this ungratefulness, and so that food became bitter, tainted, or ugly within them, and they ended up dying because it was bad. But did it turn bad because of their attitude? That's just a question I throw out there, because we really don't have the answer for it. In Numbers 12:1, I just have here, people get cranky with travel. It's because as long as they were at the mountain of God, as it's referred to, and they were camped there and things were being established, it was the golden age of obedience. Remember, I kept pointing that out. They did everything that the Lord instructed Moses, they did. But soon as they moved out, soon in that first camp after moving away, it must have been a hard trek because everybody complained. And in turn, Moses ended up complaining. And now we have Aaron and Miriam. They've moved again, and now Aaron and Miriam are complaining against Moses, and of all silly things. And this is what happens when you become disenchanted, when you gain the spirit of complaining. You are going to find and criticize the oddest things in leadership and in people in general. You will pick on things that just like really just there's no basis. So in verse 1, when they were in Hazareth, Miriam and Aaron criticized Moses on account of the Cushite woman whom he had married, for he had married a Cushite woman. Now, this was long before Moses was called. This was when Moses ran away from Egypt the first time after having killed an Egyptian. Things were pretty messed up. The Cushites are relatives of the Israelites. We've talked about that. So it's not out of the norm that he may take a wife from the Cushites. But this was long before he ever came into any form of leadership. He never imagined that he'd ever go back to Egypt, let alone lead Israel in the way or become the man that he has become in this kind of leader. So they're criticizing Moses for something that was from a long time ago. Isn't there something more recent that they could criticize him for? Like, yeah, and the Lord didn't take too kindly to it. And this is they're Miriam and Aaron. Okay, you need to understand that they're close. Okay, Moses was gone. Moses was only with them for a few months. Well, actually, a couple of years till he was weaned. So he was there for a couple of years, and then he was gone. But it was Aaron and Miriam that grew up together. Aaron and Miriam that faced so many things together. This was a brother and sister who were very close. Um, and so they're standing in this relationship they have with each other, looking at their little brother, and they're criticizing the little brother standing together in this. But Yahweh turns around, and this is his evaluation of Moses. Listen to my words. If there is a prophet of the Lord among you, I make myself known to him in visions. I speak to him in dreams, but not with my servant Moses. He has proved to be reliable with all my household. I speak with him face to face, visibly, not in riddles. He sees the Lord's form. So why aren't you afraid to criticize my servant Moses? Hmm. Now, some leaders take that and they put them that on themselves and say, why do you criticize me? And there's some leaders that really they need to be surrounded by people who will keep them in line's not the right word, but won't be a bunch of yes people, but will not challenge isn't the right word. Will present different perspectives, who will point out things in the word, who aren't afraid to point out inconsistencies and that sort of thing. And if you're a leader with your salt, then you'll be glad to have people around you like that who aren't there to destroy you, but there are to help you. Now, Miriam and Aaron weren't those kind of people. They were actually criticizing Moses in not a very great way. But yeah, the thing is that we're not Moses. Moses is very unique. Moses is very unique in this, and we can't take that on ourselves. Um, and it's not Moses who defended himself; it was the Lord who defended him. And sometimes that has to be our attitude with people. Sometimes we have to put up with things and not defend ourselves and allow the Lord to defend us or deal with that. But anyway, we have this situation. And just in winding up here um, for this chapter, uh, we see this thing, and it seems to be so unfair. It really seems to be unfair here. But I want you to understand Yahweh's perspective in this. Okay, um, Miriam suddenly became leprous. God is so angry with him. She's leprous, but nothing seems to happen to Aaron. But look at Aaron's response when his sister becomes leprous. Then Aaron said to Moses, "Oh, my master, please don't punish us for the sin that we foolishly committed." Notice, punish us. It's Miriam who's leprosy, but punish us. Please don't let her be like the stillborn, whose flesh is half eaten as it comes out of the mother's womb. See, Aaron could not be punished with leprosy because Aaron's the high priest. And Aaron has to be without blemish. Aaron has to be clean. Aaron has to be able to go into the presence of the Lord, not for Aaron's sake, but because he represents the people to God. So look what happens. Miriam is somebody who Aaron loves dearly. He would rather take that punishment on himself than to see his little sister suffer with this. It is a punishment for Aaron to be seeing Miriam going through this. Now, if you've ever had a child or sister or brother or a loved one who's going through something really horrendous, and you have felt that, just Lord, let it be on me and not on them. If you've ever felt that, you'd understand the anguish that Aaron would be feeling right now. Don't think that he's getting away with anything. He's not. It's like when he lost his two older sons because they opened up the wrong door. He wasn't allowed to mourn. So all of Israel mourned on his behalf because he wasn't. It's because of the position that he's in that there's things that it's just, oh man, it's so hard, especially if you've never been in a position of responsibility like that, and you see people suffering because of the mistakes that you make. Just, yeah. And this is Aaron crying out for his sister. Okay, so let's go to Numbers 13 now. Let's go to chapter 13. And this should be the big finale here. Um, this should be the point where it's all over. They're sending out the spies, and the whole idea is they're getting the lay of the land for the invasion and the possession. Um, this was supposed to be to, to to be the end of their travels from Egypt, and it's the beginning of the possession of the promise. So this should be the big wind up for us now in this whole journey thing that has been taking place. But they blow it. They blow it. And my question is, why go through all that they went through if they didn't believe in the promise? He promised to bring them to the promised land, and he promised to give them the promised land. So he's brought them to the promised land safely, and he's fed them along the way, and he's taken care of them. Their own rebellious ways got them in trouble, but he's got them there in one piece, and now it's time to do this. So, like, if you're gonna accept him as your God, if you're gonna follow him. Um, believe in the end. And I know that there are some Christians who really they follow Christ, and the only thing that they're concerned about is this life, but this life is just part of the journey. The promised land, if you want to call it that, is where we end up. And yet some people will get to the end. They'll get to the end of their days, and they'll just not believe. And it's crazy. Why go through this a whole life spent going through the things that you go through, denying yourself the things that you deny, and then in the end, you just turn your back on the whole thing. It's crazy. That's what it's like here. This is what's happening. And we need to understand that our perspective is shaped by our heart. How we see things is shaped by our heart. That's why we're told to be careful. Be careful with our heart, because everything proceeds from there, and it does. All of our actions come from that place. How we see things comes from that place. Everything is shaped by that heart. So if you trust the Lord, then you will see things according to His promises, according to His direction. If you if you don't love the Lord, and you're just being religious about things, and you're going through the form, and there's no substance to it, man, you're not going to be able to find him anywhere. You're not going to be able to see him. You're not going to be able to hear him. You're going to question everything. You're not going to step through what you're supposed to step through, and it's just going to kill you. It really is. It's just going to kill you. And you have to know your values, the values of the kingdom. You have to know his promises, what he's given to us. You need to know his heart, and you need to be passionate about him. So we see the perspective here. They're a bunch of complainers, right? They're a bunch of complainers, and they still don't trust Yahweh. Then they gave the report, we entered the land to which you sent us. It's actual full of milk, and actually full of milk and honey, and this is its fruit. There are, however, powerful people who live in the land. The cities have huge fortifications, and we even saw the descendants of the Anakites there. And so they're filled with fear, and they go on about where everybody lives and they're situated, and they really discourage people. They give a bad report from this whole thing, and discouragement moves through the camp. And then we have Caleb. And Caleb comes in with a heart that is for God, who believes him, who trusts him, who loves him. And now Caleb calmed the people before Moses and said, "We must go up and take possession of it, because we are more than able to do it." What they themselves know, but because they go with the promise, because they go in the strength of the Lord, because He has promised to go before them and deal with all their enemies and such. And yeah, so they blow it. They blow it. And it's sad. It's sad that there are people who get to the end of the journey and they blow it. And I just want to encourage you, man, press in even more. Be a Caleb. Be a Caleb. Be a Joshua. Be a Caleb. Trust the Lord. Trust His promises. Trust what He says to us. Trust what the Word says. Trust what He's given us in the Word and all the promises that He's given there. And don't let go of it. Don't ever let go of it. Remind yourself of it every day. Talk to Him about it. Open yourself to Him. Hear His voice, His living voice every single day to you. Be encouraged by Him in His presence. Don't give up, people. It's a day of victory. Okay, so thanks for being on this journey with me today. You guys be blessed and encouraged. Press into Him and remind yourself that He is good. God bless.